Welcome to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada, a podcast dedicated to exploring the many layers of healing and growth within the recovery community. My name is Peg McDermott, your host, along with my co-host,
Heather Hagaman.
Hello, Heather.
Hey, how are you?
And together we share conversations that honor the complete recovery experience. And today's topic is about the stories we tell ourselves and how that affects the filter through which we see our world. Because in many cases, I see the world as I am versus how it is. And it's what I believe is happening around me that may not be happening and may not be true, but it is something that is fairly common, I think, in our community.
I do too. And I just think I'll just phrase it like this. I don't like that people used to say to me, particularly like my parents used to say, oh my God, you're so self-absorbed. You're so self-centered. When really I just thought everything was about me and that somehow I was responsible for everything that was wrong in the world, mostly. I don't think I ever thought I was responsible for everything was right. But there's that feeling that anytime anybody would say, Heather, can I talk to you? I would immediately go into, what did I do wrong?
Hmm.
Or even in anything going on around me, I always thought it was about me. And so this is that's the story we tell ourselves. And that's a hard one to let go of. That takes time.
It
And
does.
Today, I think I still do it. I have to, whenever I get that, like if somebody says, I need to talk to you, I immediately go into that spin. Okay, what did I do? Do you do that?
Sometimes I do. And I'll be like, okay, let's just stay open to what's going to be discussed. But I do, the very first thing
My first
I
thought.
will go to is, what have I done wrong?
Yes.
And then I'll be like, okay, wait a second. I'm not going to, because I'll be going in on the defensive even before the conversation starts. I really have to talk myself into the present moment and talk myself into the here and now and make sure that the adult self is front and center versus many times my 12-year-old, who was told many times that she was wrong, is who will show up at these conversations, and then it's an immediate crap show. So, yeah, I think a lot of it came from what I had learned in my early days as a kid and what had been the stories that I saw and heard my mother say to herself. And I knew that she didn't feel good enough, that she wasn't enough. She'd left my father, and this was at a time when it really wasn't okay to raise two children by yourself. It was pretty taboo. It's pretty somewhat common now, but it was frowned upon. And it took her a lot of courage to make a decision to leave that marriage that was very abusive. And at the same time, it did a number on her self-esteem. And so I watched and saw how she walked through the world, and I could tell that there were things that she took personally, even in conversations she and I had, that were not meant to be a personal attack on her, but she took it as that. I found myself doing the same thing for many years, up to and including sobriety. And I found, as you and I were talking before we started our podcast, was that it's been one of the very hardest things to heal is how I talk to myself and the stories that I create around situations or something that somebody might have said that I might be taking the wrong way, and they didn't mean that at all. And deeper than that, I would look for, if I believed that I didn't belong, if I believed that I was not a part of, I would be looking for evidence, always looking for evidence to affirm that belief, and I would find it. And the same holds true for the opposite. If I feel that I am good enough and that I am worthy, I'm going to be looking for evidence to affirm that. And that has been what has helped me to change that habit of taking things personally, because taking things personally for me means I'm creating a story around a situation that happens in life, but I interpret it through my filter.
Peg, in my mind as you're speaking, I'm thinking about this is where the word adult child comes from, and that we were raised by tall people, not adults. And so we were raised by adult children. So we were going to learn how to pretty much react and respond to things at different stages and different ages of our childhood. And so much of the journey of this survival strategy, because that's all we knew. And like I said, we didn't get modeled adulting very well. I know I didn't. And so I'm going to react in ways that are not updated to the mature, wise, present moment, aware person that I am today. But it's always interesting because my go-to is to immediately go to that quick. My first thought is wrong. I go right to like, this is about me. Even when I see people in a group, like in a handful of people, I'm standing around and there's a little group over in the corner. I'm like, they're talking about me. And I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
You're not
Right.
that. You are not that great, Heather. They're not talking about you. But it's hard. And sometimes I get really caught up into it. And I know that, and I was just sharing with you before we started this, I know when I'm not in a good place is because I start having conversations with people that aren't there in my head. So I'm replaying conversations and I'm trying to find different outcomes, or I'm trying to like, if I can think all the different things that they're thinking, then somehow I will have control over whatever's going to happen next. And it's really interesting just to bring a little science in. They have found in our brains that we have this default mode network. And it's like a screensaver, so that when we are, let's say you're working on something and then you stop for a moment, you kind of stare off in space for a moment. Or you don't have anything you're working on. It's just a place where our brain just kind of goes into this figuring out relationships, replaying the past conversations, and they found it in the brain. Like we actually are always trying to process things. And so what's interesting, they found that people that have had trauma histories tend to have a savage DMN, default mode network, where the normies are just like, oh, I saw Betty. She had kind of a frown on her face. I hope she's okay. Whereas we go, I just saw Betty. She just looks at me. She hates me. I'm just such a horrible person. And so this DMN, that is a absolutely part of our brain processing, needs to move into more of a resonant, kind, loving, gentle voice. And so catching ourselves and catching ourselves when we go into that, whatever you want to call it, that savage critical, we have that, and it kept us alive. It took over the role of these immature parents that didn't know how to motivate us through inspiration. They motivated us through shame and guilt, and we're be alive kind of energy. And so it took over their role, which is fascinating because mom and dad are long gone. And I still have them in my head at times whispering, and I can hear the difference now. It's not my voice anymore. This is the growth. And I said to my mom today, can you just give me a break, Mom? I said, yeah, why? Because I can hear her voice just criticizing me. And I was criticizing myself, but it was in her voice now. Anyway, it's quite a journey. That might sound a little bit complicated, but I think that as long as we could just talk about, we're talking about something that's very real and that continues on. And the solution, in my mind, is get around people that are high vibe, happy. They talk well to themselves. They talk wonderfully to you. And we pick up that imprinting and we begin to reparent ourselves back we have the loving parents that we always wanted, and we begin to lovingly parent our own little self.
Yeah. That's so sweet. I think that critical parent or that critical part of ourselves, you're right. I think it developed as a survival mechanism when we were younger. And it was a way to cope and make sense of what was difficult to make sense of at a young age. And I would say, like my mom, it was primarily my mom, because my mom had left my father when I was like 7. And I mean, he definitely imprinted on me for sure, because he was more of that, had that anger energy. My mom did too, but hers was more just self-loathing, I think. And so you don't even realize how this is getting imprinted on you as a child. It's just getting sort of installed. And we're pretty brilliant little beings then, and we know how to do our best to navigate these difficult situations and basically for survival. And I didn't realize how unconscious all of it was. It wasn't anything that was in my conscious brain. It was all unconscious. And the more unconscious it was, the more reactive I was, because I didn't have a stopgap. It was like immediate flip the switch and react. And I've learned in our community to pause, even if it's just for a few seconds, which allows me to get my bearings in a situation that might be going south, and not allow myself to get caught up in it or try and fix it, try to be the peacemaker, that was my role growing up as well. And what I learned in our work together in recovery is the work that we've done through our 12-step recovery programs has been about bringing all this to the surface in a gentle and loving way, but being more aware of how we're self-defeating. And these limiting beliefs are self-defeating. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I don't belong here. I don't belong with that group. I am not going to do well in my work. I'm not going to get the raise. My boss hates me. Those are stories that I would tell myself because that's what I believed.
Yes.
And if I had a high level of self-esteem, I wouldn't be having those stories. They wouldn't be running through my brain. I'd be challenging them every step of the way. I'd challenge it. Wait a minute. No, that's not correct. I am good enough. And what are some of the examples of that? And I would come up with something. Look what I did last week. That was awesome. You gave yourself a little pep talk if you're not with a friend who can do it. And that also helps to interrupt that pathway, right? Because we run these pathways and they get really rooted in our brain, but they can be changed because of neuroplasticity. We can change that I sure as hell couldn't change it when I was drinking. I didn't even know what to change when I was drinking. But when I stopped, when I came into our, in the fold of our loving community, I really learned, wow, I didn't realize how much I hated myself. And I drank so destructively because of that. And I had to unlearn this program of subtraction. I had to unlearn so many things to get to the real me, the authentic me, which is a loving, warm, inclusive human being, just as you are and everyone else is.
So just kind of recapping a little bit what you were saying about this is definitely coming from our childhood. It's kind of foundation in which our lens developed from our earliest experiences with our caregivers and the environment. And then just like you pointed out, totally unconscious influence for a very long time. And they kind of operate in the background, kind of drive our emotions and our choices. And so there's various types of stories that we had depending on the kind of people we were around. They could be empowering stories some of us got, like you can do it, or push yourself to the limit, which is what I got. You have to be number one. That's just one that I know that was given to me they thought positively, but all it did to me is just make me think I can never get there. Just the perfectionism, that's a whole nother topic we could go on. But the most important thing is like you were saying, that we have to first begin to become aware and recognize our patterns of thought, which means that we have to put down what we're using to numb and not think anymore. I know that I used alcohol to black out and just to not have any thoughts. That's why I did it. I was so excited to find something that could shut my brain off for a while. But as you're sober and time goes on, you have to start to hear your thoughts and behavior, and you have to start reframing, like you talked about, those beliefs that we have, very limiting beliefs, and actively kind of challenge this negative self-talk that has developed as a way to keep us in line
Mhm.
in achieving or just surviving, like living through our experience. That sometimes we had to talk to ourselves to change our behavior and to save our lives. And I know that we were very outer focused, and we had to always like look out at, especially in our homes, to be safe, right? We always like focusing on trying to figure out. The first person we tried to figure out, and this is my story, maybe your story too, is okay, what's mom's mood today? Oh, oh my gosh, there she goes. Should I be afraid? What do I need to do here? And I remember hearing this in one of the rooms. I heard when we get into recovery, we get out of the mind reading club. And I thought, you know what? That's so true. And that has been huge, because so much of my life, I realized I was always trying to mind read for safety reasons, to figure
Right.
out how can I be safe in this situation. And so now I realize I can't mind read. So oftentimes when I do talk to somebody, for example, somebody I live with who's doing his thing, and I'm making up that he's mad at something. Is it me? And I'm like, no, it can't be me. I got to stop that thinking. And then I just will say, hey, I make up that you're upset about something because you're throwing things around. Can you verbally tell me what it is, or do you have to indirectly show me through your behavior? I talk like this now. We've talked about
Mhm.
this. I have to talk like this
Yeah.
because I'm not going to recreate this in my life, in my home life anymore. I need my home life to be safe. And I don't need to spend my time trying to figure out what other people are thinking, trying to feel like, oh my God, are they mad at me? I cannot spend any more energy doing that because I'm too OLD.
Yeah, you're beautiful. OLD. Yeah, it was such a survival tool for reading people's moods, not just my mom, but I got really good at reading people's moods, period. And I would enable what you had shared about the passive aggressive behavior. I would enable it. I would be like, oh, what's going on? What did I do something? Are you upset about something? What can I do? Blah, 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 blah. Peace, trying to be the peacekeeper and read minds. And it could just be that they had a bad day. It has nothing to do with me. But of course, I was not able to go there. It was about me. I must have caused it. And if I don't try and intercept it, I'm going to somehow be punished. And the control thing is about safety. If I can control what's happening, then maybe I'll feel a little more safe, because I'm not feeling safe right now because of this passive aggressive behavior that's going on. And I've learned, as you have, to basically call it out, but not in a way that's confrontational. Like, you seem stressed, or you seem not yourself. What's going on? You want to talk about it? And kind of keep it as neutral as possible, and let them share what's going on, or they can just say, yeah, I've had a tough day. I said, okay, let me know if you need anything. And I go on about my day and not take it on, because then those layers of self-abuse and self-recrimination just weigh us down. And then the other thing I realized too, when I would default to it being about me somehow, was what's checking in with myself to see, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Is there something physically going on with me, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Have I checked in with my higher power today? Have I prayed? Have I meditated? Have I done the things that ground me? And when I do those things, my mind tends to stay relatively neutral. When I don't do those things and I'm stressed and that I tend to make the situation more about me when it's not about me. And that still happens today because we're human.
Yeah.
We're not these enlightened beings floating above the earth, above everyone else. We're human beings walking among everyone else. And someone is usually carrying some kind of a burden that we're not aware of. And it may not have anything to do with us. If some car races by me and cuts me off, there would have been a day I would have thrown a few gestures at that person. But today I'm thinking maybe they need to get home to feed their dogs. Or maybe there's an issue at home that they got to go get to quickly. And that does help diffuse that self-absorbed narrative that can happen pretty quickly, very quickly. It actually can be pretty scary how fast that can happen. And the other thing I noticed for a while there is I was very much invested in being a victim. It felt good. I liked being a victim because when I made myself the center of this story and I felt sorry for myself, I didn't have to take responsibility for my feelings. And I didn't have to be an adult. And I've noticed in others that tends to be a way of being for them. And it's they've learned, whether it's to get attention, whether it's to feel safe, whether it's for whatever reason, they're finding a payoff in that story. And that is what it is. People will come up with narratives and stories that fit beliefs around themselves. And if they think they're a victim, then they're going to look at the world as a victim.
Yeah.
And that's exhausting.
Yes. And I think this is, this is why we're talking about this, is to help. We're saying 99% of things are not about me, and to just remind yourself to avoid taking things personally and overthinking. By that overthinking, right? That's the exhaustion. And not and just like to acknowledge that most situations are not about us. And just like you said, there are other people's actions are more about their own circumstances, right? We don't know what's going on in people, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and it really kind of comes back to what we can control, right? What people, rather than dwelling on things outside, what can we really control? And that's basically our reaction to things is the best that we can. But I know that I do well for a while. And then, for example, I taught a training a couple weekends ago, and I said something. At first I thought, I don't know if I should say this, but I said it anyway. And it might have had kind of a shaming energy around it because this person was sharing. And then I got caught up into my own, God, I shouldn't have said that. Blah, blah. And but here's the thing. It's different than me. It's a different kind of example. But afterwards, I had to go to my colleague and say, was I wrong in saying this? Did I say something? Was it hurtful what I said? And she said, no, I don't think so. But so no matter what, it just seems like our brains are either overthinking that it's about me, or overthinking that we're affecting others with, it's like this overthinkings. What do they say? The obsession of the mind? It just goes in all kinds of directions, right? Allergy of the body and obsession of the mind.
Yes.
And this is just another way that it shows up. And so I just think so much of the journey is to really start to just gain perspective and just embrace the bigger picture and try to just say, oh, okay, I got to step back and just check this out. And then we do have tools to say, hey, what's going on? Or I make up, blah, blah, blah. We have ways to navigate this so we don't feel so little and so unsafe, because this triggers unsafeness in me.
So when, you're in that, and I like the fact that you checked in with someone on what their observation was. And that's what we do with sponsors and mentors and whatnot, and talk to them and say, this situation came up and I kind of felt weird about it. And I'm not really sure if maybe I hurt the other person's feelings, or I'm just sort of running this story in my head, and I'll run it by them. and they'll either, and the thing is, the beautiful thing in our community is that we'll get loving honesty.
Yes, we will.
And then we can decide what to do with that after the fact. I think we've learned that these stories have started in very early days. They were a way of protecting ourselves and surviving in what could be a very abusive situation. It was for me anyway. And the drinking that ensued as a result of these beliefs that we feel about ourselves. And from there, we learn in our community, in our program, how to re-love ourselves and write new stories about who we are. And I have found the universe, God, HP will always put in front of me situations and people that will mirror back to me where I still need to work. And if I look at it that way, and I don't always do this, but when I do, I'm like, oh, this person is definitely here to teach me something, and I am open to learning it without being disrespected and without boundaries being infringed upon. But really coming up with these empowering stories or challenging these stories that come up from the critical parent or the critical adult, and where the 11 or 12-year-old is like not knowing what to do, but the loving parent comes forth and says, that isn't true. You're pretty awesome. And you've done a lot of things that have been loving and empowering. And you really do have to challenge these voices. They don't just go away. They're deeply ingrained, but we can also deeply ingrain these empowering mantras and narratives and remind ourselves and stop it and interrupt it and say, wait a minute, no, that's not true. And replace it with the thing that I know to be true is that I am a loving child of God and I'm here for a reason. And that my self-worth is at a point now where I truly do love myself today. And I won't allow disrespectful behavior or a boundary infringement. And at the same time, I have to look to make sure I'm in enough physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual good space to not go into the world that day and be a victim or be in a defensive posture or being, I'm ready to fight somebody. I really have to watch that. And because I don't want to be like, I used to be like that. And people did not know what kind of, which peg they were going to get. And I don't believe that's as much an issue today for me, but I do have to keep an eye on it. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I'm wired a certain way. And I will default to a certain way of thinking if I don't watch keep my spiritual maintenance in good shape. Meditation, prayer. You do this all the time, especially in your yoga practice.
We can earn our secure attachment by really changing the stories in our minds. And so I sent this to a friend today, just sort of kind of sums up, I think, what we're saying here. And I'm going to share it with you. Today, I seek the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. And that's
right.
That's it. Live and let live. Let people do their thing. Not about you, Heather. Just smile and be curious when you think it is about you, because it may be that 1% that's about you, but for the most part, people are all struggling.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure this out. And I'm just going to walk around, just connected to the higher power of love and just be a calming presence for people as I move the world. And that's my journey. And I love you.
Oh, I love you too. And that's a beautiful way of being, because I do believe we need it and a lot of others need it today. So thank you for joining us on this episode of Recovery, the Whole Enchilada. If you connected with our chat today, please share it and like it and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And your feedback does help us to shape future conversations. We love you. We cherish you. Thank you for helping us to heal. And I hope that what we've shared has done the same for you today. And we will make sure to talk about next time, I believe it's work and careers, which should be interesting as far as how do we navigate some work challenges at times in recovery. Sounds good?
Sounds great. So good to see you.
So until next time, stay strong and keep growing.